Forced to marry a scarred blacksmith at 18, his wedding gift changed everything on her wedding day. The scarred blacksmith secretly gave his orc bride the only key that could destroy their marriage. At 18, Malkova stood inside Blackridge Hall with an iron cuff around her wrist and a human stranger chained beside her. A starving clan needed grain. His village needed the northern iron road. Neither had been asked whether peace was worth the price of their freedom. The blacksmith was Rowan Ashcroft, a quiet young man with burned hands and a scar running from his temple to the corner of his mouth. Instead of jewelry, he gave Malkova a wooden box containing a second key to the marriage chain. He had altered the lock so either of them could leave whenever they chose. Malkova did not know Rowan was the last living heir of a fallen royal house. She did not know the same people who had arranged their marriage intended to kill him before winter, and she could not know that the freedom he placed in her palm would later be tested by jealousy. A forbidden kiss and one confession powerful enough to save their marriage or end it forever. Welcome back to Orc Bond Saga, where human and orc hearts collide across worlds divided by fear, pride, and old blood. Stay until the end, because the chain locked around Malkova's wrist will pass through fire before becoming something neither of them could have imagined. Rain struck the timber roof of Blackridge Hall while humans stood along the eastern wall and orcs filled the western side. No one crossed the space. Between them, the human magistrate opened the treaty book and read the agreement in a voice that carried poorly through the storm. Dunmere would restore grain shipments to the Thornmarch clans. In return, the orcs would reopen the northern pass that supplied human smithies with mountain iron. The marriage would bind both promises. Malkova turned toward her mother, Elara, stood behind the elders with her worn hands folded over her plain dress. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. She looked frightened rather than guilty. Malkova asked whether she had agreed to this. Elara looked toward the starving clan children gathered near the rear doors. 30 families have almost no food left. She answered, "That was not what I asked." Elara met her daughter's eyes. "No," she said quietly. "I begged them to choose another way." Malkova's anger paused. One elder struck his staff against the floor and announced that the decision had been made by the clan council. Malkova faced him. "Why me?" "Because you are a warrior without rank," he answered. "Your marriage costs the clan no inheritance. The truth is cut cleanly. Malkova had been chosen because she was low-born, fatherless, and politically disposable. The chain between her wrist and Rowan's shifted. She expected the human to tell her to remain silent. Instead, he looked down at his own cuff. "Dunmere chose me because I own no land and have no family powerful enough to object," he said. A councilman warned him not to insult the village during a treaty ceremony. Rowan asked when honesty had become an insult. Malkova looked at him properly for the first time. He was perhaps 24. His black coat had been repaired so many times that the patches resembled scales. Fresh linen covered his right palm. His scar pulled slightly whenever he tightened his jaw. He looked poor. He looked tired. He did not look frightened. "Enough," the magistrate hurried. Through the vows, Malkova promised not to raise a weapon against Rowan's household unless defending herself. Rowan promised never to sell, confine, or command her body. When the final vow was spoken, the magistrate declared them bound. The ceremonial key was handed to Elara. Malkova saw her mother hesitate before accepting it. That hesitation was the only reason Malkova did not hate her completely. The witnesses began, leaving Alistair Kane, the Reeve of Dunmere, remained near the doors. He was narrow-faced, carefully dressed and dry beneath a servant's umbrella. He had watched the entire ceremony without blinking. He approached Rowan. "Chains break easily," he said. "People do not." Rowan met his eyes. Was that advice? A warning? Alistair glanced at Malkova, then toward Elara. "Let us hope this wife proves less expensive than her mother." Elara's face was drained of color. Malkova stepped forward. "What did you say?" Alistair smiled. "Only that peace always has hidden costs." Before Malkova could question him, a commotion rose outside the hall. 2 guards dragged in a wounded messenger who had been found near the southern gate. His throat had been cut, though not deeply enough to kill him at. Once he carried a torn grain manifest clutched against his chest. The messenger collapsed before reaching the magistrate. A healer rushed forward. The man tried to speak. He managed only one word: warehouse. Then his body went still. The hall erupted. Beneath, manifest listed grain shipments meant for the Thorn March. Several wagon numbers had been scratched out and rewritten. Alistair bent beside the body. He looked shocked. Too shocked. Malkova noticed a thin smear of black wax beneath his glove. The same wax sealed the broken manifest. He covered it before anyone else saw. Then he stood and ordered the doors closed. No one leaves until the guard determines whether the killer is inside, he announced. Malkova watched him. The man who claimed to protect the treaty had known the messenger was coming. Perhaps he had also known the messenger would not survive. Rowan looked at Malkova. She knew from his expression that he had noticed something too. The body was carried away. Alistair declared that bandits had attacked the southern road and promised an investigation. No one believed him. No one challenged him. Within an hour, the hall emptied. Malkova and Rowan remained beside the dying ceremonial fire, still chained together. Rowan reached inside his coat. Malkova's free hand moved toward the knife beneath her skirt. He stopped. "Not a weapon," he said. "I did not ask." His scar shifted as though he almost smiled. He placed a small wooden box on the table. "A wedding gift. I want nothing from you." "Then throw it into the fire." Malkova narrowed her eyes. "You would not stop me." "It would be a strange gift if I did." He stepped back. Malkova opened the box. 2 small iron keys rested inside. One had a human ash leaf worked into the handle. The other carried the angular mark of her clan. Malkova looked down at her cuff. A second keyhole had been cut. Beneath the old ceremonial seal, Rowan explained that he had replaced the original locks before the ceremony. The elders believed Elara held the only key. They were wrong. Malkova picked up the clan-marked key. The metal was warm from Rowan's coat. "Why?" she asked. "A promise made by someone who cannot leave is only obedience." No elder had ever spoken to her that way. Her clan praised duty while demanding silence. Humans praised peace while choosing an unwanted blacksmith and an unwanted orc warrior to pay for it. Yet Rowan had given her freedom before asking for trust. "What do you expect in return?" "Nothing. No gratitude? No obedience? No loyalty?" Rowan glanced at the chain. Loyalty taken as payment is another kind of purchase. Before Malkova could answer, the hall doors opened again. A guard shouted that Rowan's forge was burning. Rowan unlocked his cuff. He did not order Malkova to follow. He ran into the rain. Malkova looked at the key in her hand. Then she unlocked her own cuff and followed. The forge stood at the edge of Dunmere. Beneath a sky blackened by smoke, villagers carried buckets from the well, but most stayed far from the flames. Burning beams cracked inside the workshop. Sparks spun through the rain. Rowan ran toward the entrance. Malkova seized his arm. "The roof is falling. My tools are inside. Tools can be replaced. My father's hammer cannot." He pulled free, wrapped wet cloth over his mouth, and entered the fire. Malkova cursed him and followed. Heat struck her face. Rowan was dragging a wooden chest away from the main anvil. Burning timber fell around him. Malkova lifted the chest with one arm. "Move!" A beam crashed where they had been standing. They reached the doorway as the roof folded inward. Malkova threw the chest into the mud and dragged Rowan after it. He collapsed. Coughing, she dropped beside him. "You knew the roof would fall." "Yes, you went. Anyway, yes, you are either brave or stupid. I have never been certain. Those are different things." She wanted to strike him. Instead, she checked his breathing. His face was hot beneath her palm. Rain ran from her braids onto his mouth. His hand closed around her wrist for one breath. Neither moved. Then the eastern wall collapsed. Malkova pulled him away. Alistair arrived once the flames weakened. He stood beneath an umbrella. His boots clean despite the mud. A terrible accident, he said. Rowan looked at the soaked ground. Sparks do not travel through rain. Stranger things happen. Alistair's gaze moved toward Malkova. Several villagers whispered that the orc bride had brought bad luck. Rowan stepped beside her. Who knew the forge would be empty during the ceremony? Everyone. The answer sounded harmless. Malkova heard the threat beneath. Alistair advised them to move into the abandoned charcoal cottage outside the village. Then he leaned closer to Rowan. Your father also believed evidence would protect him. Rowan went still. Alistair walked away. Malkova turned toward Rowan. What did he mean? Nothing. That was not nothing. Rowan lifted the surviving tool chest. We need shelter before dark. Inside the chest, Malkova saw hammers, tongs, a folded blue cloth, and a silver signet ring marked with a broken tower beneath 3 stars. House Ashcroft. A. Royal family destroyed for treason 20 years. Earlier, Rowan covered the ring. My father's things. Malkova said nothing, but the mystery followed them toward Eastwood. The charcoal cottage had 1 room, 1 bed, 2 broken shutters, and a roof that leaked into a cooking pot. Someone had painted the human symbol for unclean union across the door. Rowan scraped it away until blood soaked the linen around his palm. Malkova ordered him to sit. He claimed he was fine. That was not a question. She cleaned his hand with bitterroot water. Where did you learn this? He asked. Border patrol. A warrior? Lowborn warriors are allowed to bleed for the clan even when we are not allowed to speak for it. Rowan's mouth tightened. Humans have different customs and similar cowards. Malkova almost smiled. That night, she went to bed. Rowan slept near the hearth beneath an old grain sack. After midnight, his teeth began striking together. Malkova ordered him into the bed. He refused. I will not attack you. That is not the only danger. What else do you fear? He opened his eyes. I do not know you well enough to name it. The honesty unsettled her. She lifted the blanket. The bed was narrow. Their shoulders touched. Rowan lay rigidly behind her. His breath moved across the back of her neck. Do human men always become stone when sharing a bed? Human men usually know their wives longer. Then one day, you gave me a key. Freedom does not remove nervousness. Malkova turned. Their faces were close. Rowan's eyes moved from her tusks to the scar across her throat. Does my face frighten you? Yes, her expression hardened. Then he added that beauty often. Did Malkova stopped breathing. She caught the back of his neck. He went still. She waited. Rowan's gaze dropped to her mouth. For one dangerous moment, she thought he would kiss her. Then he gently removed her hand. Why did you stop? I need to know whether you want me or only want to defeat the silence. The question struck harder than rejection. Malkova turned away. She stared into the darkness for the rest of the night, furious that he had denied them both, and more drawn to him because he had. At dawn, they found the body of a young grain clerk beside the cottage. Well, his throat had been cut. A thorn-marked knife had been placed in his hand. The blade was too clean. The scene had been arranged. Rowan examined the clerk's boots and found red clay beneath the soles. The nearest red clay road led to Alistair's private grain warehouse. Malkova asked how a blacksmith knew to look. Rowan said metal was not the only thing that left marks. Alistair arrived with guards and accused an unknown orc. Raider. Malkova showed him the clean knife. Alistair looked annoyed for half a heartbeat. Then the expression vanished. He ordered the body removed and warned them not to interfere with the investigation. That evening, someone poisoned the cottage well. Rowan smelled the bitterroot before either drank. 2 attacks in one day. No one could pretend the marriage had simply made villagers uncomfortable. Someone wanted witnesses dead and the treaty pair afraid. Grain Road opened 3 days later, underarmed. Patrol. Rowan began rebuilding a forge beside the cottage. Malkova helped. Their days tightened into a rhythm. He worked iron before dawn. She patrolled the road. They ate thin onion stew, argued about human bread, and repaired whatever broke before winter could make it. Fatal. Rowan showed her how to shape the furnace wall. She made it too. Thick, it will trap heat, it will be stronger, it will crack, Orc. Fortresses stand for centuries, Orky. Fortresses are not bread ovens. She stared at him. He stared. Back, show me. Rowan stepped behind her and guided her hands through wet clay. His chest brushed her back. Both froze. He moved away first. The angle matters. He said. Malkova looked over her shoulder. I was beginning to understand. His face warmed. Rowan's skill quickly became impossible to ignore. A merchant brought him a royal lock no other smith in the border towns could open without destroying it. Rowan listened to the mechanism, filed one strip of iron thinner than a fingernail, and opened it in minutes. A cavalry captain brought a cracked ceremonial blade made from layered northern steel. 3 smiths had declared it ruined. Rowan reheated only the damaged section, folded new metal into the crack, and restored the balance so precisely that the captain could not identify where the break had been. People began saying only, Rowan could repair what should have stayed broken. Malkova pretended the praise did not affect her. It did. One afternoon, a wagon carrying 2 human children lost a wheel on the mountain slope. The car tipped toward a ravine. Malkova caught the rear frame and held it while Rowan crawled beneath to fit a temporary pin. Mud slid beneath her boots. Move faster, she ordered. Shouting does not improve. Iron dot falling may improve speed. The pin locked. The children escaped. Then an arrow struck the cart. 3 masked riders emerged from the trees. Malkova shoved Rowan behind the wagon. The first attacker charged. She caught his spear beneath one arm, broke the shaft, and drove him from the saddle. The second fired. Malkova turned her shoulder and let the arrow strike her armor. She threw the broken spear hard enough to knock him from his horse. The third rider fled. Rowan stared at her. Malkova removed the arrow from her shoulder guard. Do not look so surprised. I am deciding whether to call you brave or stupid. Those qualities may be related. He smiled. That evening, Rowan found the bruise spreading beneath her armor. He warmed a stone, wrapped it in cloth, and placed it beside her. Then Malkova asked whether he intended to treat her like an injured child. He told her she could throw it into the fire. She used it after he turned away. Captain Freya arrived with the next patrol. She was broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, and marked by the same low-born warrior tattoos as Malkova. They had trained together for years and survived 2 winter campaigns side by side. Freya had loved Malkova for a long time. Malkova had never returned the feeling. She had also never forced Freya to let it go. Freya looked Rowan over. The scarred husband is smaller than expected. The captain is louder than expected. Malkova hid a smile. Freya did not. Freya remained for 2 days while her patrol exchanged grain road reports. She watched Malkova laugh with Rowan over burned bread. She watched Rowan repair a crack in Malkova's armor without asking payment. She watched Malkova place herself between the blacksmith and every stranger who raised a voice near him. On the second evening, Freya asked whether Malkova was safe. Malkova touched the key beneath her shirt. Safer than I expected. Freya's jaw tightened. Later, Rowan asked why Freya looked at Malkova as though waiting for a door to reopen. Malkova said Freya was loyal. Rowan answered that loyalty and hope were not the same thing. Malkova asked whether he was jealous. Rowan said jealousy was a warning, not proof. She followed him outside. Do you want me? Desire is not trust. You keep saying that because you keep asking for one as proof of the other. She stepped close. Rowan did not retreat. Malkova placed one hand beside his head. His gaze dropped to her mouth. What was Freya to you? He asked. A battle companion. Only that? Malkova hesitated. Not because she had ever kissed Freya. She had not. But she knew Freya wanted more. And she had enjoyed being wanted without naming the cost. Rowan saw the hesitation. Malkova said Freya belonged to an old life. Is that life finished? Yes. The answer came too late. Rowan walked inside. The next morning, they found another threat nailed to the forge. Or the paper carried no words. Only a strip cut from the dead grain clerk's coat. Alistair was no longer merely watching, he was reminding them that he could reach anyone Malkova wanted to confront him. Rowan refused. He had begun studying manifests, seal marks and forge orders. He found iron shipments recorded twice under different merchant names. He noticed that grain wagons attacked by supposed orc raiders always belonged to merchants who refused Alistair's private tolls. Malkova asked where a village blacksmith learned to count codes. My father believed numbers revealed what men hid. Your father sounds less like a smith every day. Rowan looked away. That night, Alistair came to the forge alone. No guards, no umbrella. He stood beyond the firelight while Rowan worked. Malkova remained in the shadows behind the open doorway. Unseen, Alistair asked whether Rowan had ever wondered why frightened people obeyed more reliably than grateful ones. Rowan did not stop hammering. I have wondered why men who call themselves leaders confuse obedience with peace. Alistair smiled. Peace is a word used by people who have never watched neighbors become enemies. Over one empty grain sack, you emptied the sacks. I controlled them. That is not the same thing to starving families. It is. Rowan set down the hammer. Why? For the first time, Alistair's expression lost its polished calm. He said his mother had died during the first border famine, while orc raiders burned human wagons less than a mile away. Human lords argued over responsibility. Orc elders denied involvement. No one acted until the bodies froze. He had learned that fear moved people faster than mercy. A frightened village paid tolls. A frightened clan accepted conditions. Frightened kings signed decrees without reading them. Peace, Alistair said, depended on making every side more afraid of losing order than angry about who controlled it. Rowan asked how many bodies his order required, as many as disorders would have taken. Malkova stepped into the light. You sound like every coward who calls cruelty practical. Alistair looked at her without surprise. He had known she was there. He told Malkova that warriors loved clean enemies because they did not understand systems. A sword killed one person. Hunger moved thousands. Malkova's hand went to her weapon. Rowan stepped between them. Alistair smiled at the gesture. There, he said, a frightened man protecting what he thinks he owns. Rowan answered that. Malkova did not belong to him. Alistair looked almost disappointed. Everyone belongs to something. Then he left. Malkova watched him disappear into the night for the first time. She understood what made him dangerous. Alistair did not enjoy cruelty. He believed in it. The following evening, Malkova placed the silver signet ring on the table. Why does a blacksmith own the crest of House Ashcroft? Return it. It belonged to your father. Yes, House Ashcroft died for treason. History is usually written by those who keep their estates. Who are you? The man the council chained beside you. Malkova struck the table. I have given you more truth than you have given me. Does that include Freya? Her anger sharpened. Freya has feelings for me. I never returned them, but you let her keep hoping. Malkova had no answer. Rowan picked up the ring. My bloodline has killed people. Her feelings are not harmless to me. They argued until Rowan left for the forge. Malkova followed later. He stood shirtless beside the furnace, stitching a tear in his work clothes. Firelight revealed burns across his back and an old sword wound beneath one shoulder. Where did a blacksmith get that scar? Return to the cottage. No. Rowan turned. Malkova touched the old wound. He caught her wrist. Do you fear me again? I fear what happens when you look at me like that. Stop running. His hands closed around her waist. For a moment, anger became heat. Rowan kissed the scar on her throat. Malkova's knees weakened. She gripped his shoulders as his mouth moved along her jaw. His restraint made every touch more intense. She dragged his face up. Their mouths hovered a breath apart. Rowan stopped. Malkova's voice came rough. Why? Because I still do not know whether you want me or only want to. Win. Malkova took his hand and placed it over her racing heart. I want the man who gave me a key before asking my name. His fingers tightened. I want the fool who ran into a burning forge. She moved closer. "Want a man who sees pain and does not turn it into shame." Rowan searched her. "You face," then he kissed her. Their first real kiss was slow enough for Malkova to feel every change in his breathing. His hand moved from her, heart to the back of her neck. She held him against the forge table, but did not trap or rush him. When the kiss deepened, he pulled her closer by the belt. Her tusks brushed his lower lip. He did not flinch. Heat gathered between them until the forge fire felt cold. Malkova lifted him onto the edge of the table, then stopped when his body tensed. Rowan looked into her eyes. She asked whether he wanted her to let go. He shook his head. His fingers tightened in the leather at her waist and pulled her back. The kiss that followed carried no anger, only hunger held. Under control for too long, Rowan's mouth moved from hers to the scar at her throat. Malkova's breath caught. She pressed her forehead to his and laughed once, breathlessly, because no one had ever made her feel powerful and vulnerable in the same moment. Rowan told her she was laughing at a dangerous time. Malkova answered that he talked too much. She kissed him again. His hands moved over her back, careful where the armor straps had bruised her. Her fingers traced the old sword wound beneath his shoulder, and then the burn scar on his face. The furnace cracked behind them. For several minutes, the world narrowed to breath, heat, and the knowledge that both could stop. Neither did. Then hoofbeats sounded outside. They separated reluctantly. A rider wearing the silver badge of the human crown dismounted. He looked at Rowan. Then he lowered himself onto one knee. "My lord," he said, "I am Sir Cedric Rowan. I serve Duke Theodore Ashcroft. I have searched 12 years for the last living heir of your house." The yard became silent. Malkova stared at Rowan. Not a distant relation, not a forgotten noble branch, the final living heir. The soot-stained blacksmith beside her carried the last blood of one of the oldest human houses in the north. Inside the cottage, Sir Cedric placed letters, ledgers, and a royal pardon across the table. Rowan's father had not been a traitor. The evidence against House Ashcroft had been forged by Magnus Kane, Alistair's father. Theodore Ashcroft had discovered that the Kane family manipulated grain prices and closed the Iron Road to weaken rival territories. He fled with his son before the crown could seize them. He abandoned his title and became a smith. The forge fire that killed him had been deliberate. Malkova looked at Rowan's patched clothing, his scarred hands, and the old ring between them. Everything made sense. The court grammar, the sword wound, the way Alistair watched him. Rowan told Sir Cedric he wanted no title. Sir Cedric answered that blood remained useful to enemies even when its owner refused a crown. House Ashcroft had once controlled the Iron Road. Alistair had arranged the marriage because the treaty placed both the last Ashcroft heir and the Thornmarch trade within his reach. If the marriage failed, Rowan could be blamed. If it succeeded, Alistair could continue controlling the road while keeping its lawful heir hidden. Malkova's forced marriage had been part of a larger trap. She asked how long Rowan had known who he was. His father had told him before dying, "You hid it. I did not know whether he was innocent. You knew the name. I knew what it had cost. I slept beside you. You hid Freya's feelings. They are not the same. Why do your secrets deserve understanding while mine deserve anger?" Malkova had no answer. Sir Cedric explained that the original account records might remain beneath the ruined Ashcroft estate. Rowan decided to retrieve them. Malkova said she would go. "It is my family's danger. They poisoned my well and attacked my road. I do not want you following on from duty." Malkova stepped closer. "I am not following as your treaty wife." "Then what are you following?" She wanted a partner. She wanted to say lover. Fear stopped her, someone who hates unfinished fights. Disappointment crossed Rowan's face. They travelled south with Sir Cedric. The ruined Ashcroft estate stood beside a dead orchard. Most windows had been removed. Villagers had taken roof stones and floorboards over the years. Beneath the chapel, Rowan found a lock concealed behind a carved saint's panel. Sir Cedric said no one had ever opened it without Theodore's signet. Rowan studied the mechanism. The lock was not designed for a key alone. It responded to pressure on 3 hidden iron pins. Rowan removed a thin strip from his tool roll, bent it twice, and placed it through a crack barely wider than a needle. Malkova watched his fingers move. He listened to the lock as if it were speaking. 1 pin clicked, then another. The 3rd resisted. Rowan warmed the metal strip over a lantern flame and tried again. The hidden door opened. Sir Cedric stared. "Your father said only an Ashcroft smith would understand it." Rowan answered that locks were honest if one knew how to listen. Inside were ledgers connecting the Kane family to illegal tolls, manipulated grain shipments, paid a tax, and orc informants. One name appeared repeatedly: Elara. Malkova stared at her mother's mark. Until that moment, Elara had seemed frightened, pressured, and trapped by the elders. Now the ledgers showed she had been selling patrol schedules and storage numbers to Alistair for years. The revelation struck without warning. They rode north without sleeping. When confronted, Elara denied everything until Rowan placed the original ledgers before her. Then she collapsed. 3 failed harvests had left her owing human merchants more than she could pay. Alistair offered grain in exchange for information. Each payment created another debt. Elara insisted she had never intended anyone to die. Malkova asked whether she had intended for her daughter to be forced into marriage. Elara wept. She said she had opposed the marriage at first. Alistair threatened to expose her debts and accuse Malkova of helping orc raiders unless she agreed. That was why Elara had accepted the ceremonial key. Not because she wanted control, because Alistair already controlled her. Malkova's anger did not disappear. It became more complicated. She delivered the evidence to the elders. Elara was arrested. The clan split. Some called Malkova disloyal for exposing her own mother. Others blamed Elara for helping those who had starved them. Outside the hearing, warriors spat near Malkova's boots and called her a human's pet. Malkova did not draw her sword. That restraint cost more than fighting. Rowan followed her into the rain. She accused him of looking at Elara like another line in a ledger. He said a crime did not disappear because fear explained it. Malkova told him a fallen lord's son could speak easily about justice. Rowan's face went still. Titles did not stop me from burying my father with my own hands. He walked away. Malkova remained alone outside the clan walls. Her mother had lied. Her clan called her traitor. Rowan carried royal blood and had hidden it. She felt dirty, foolish, and unwanted by both worlds. Freya found her beside the watch camp after dark. She carried a wineskin. Malkova refused it. Freya sat beside her anyway. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Freya said, Elara's arrest had divided the warriors. Malkova answered that hunger had merely exposed divisions already there. Freya told her Rowan had changed her. Malkova stared into the fire. Perhaps I was foolish enough to think I could change. You did change, and what did it cost? Freya placed the wineskin between them. She said Malkova did not have to be strong that night. Malkova laughed bitterly. That is what people say before they ask me to become weak for them. Freya said she was asking nothing. Malkova looked at the drink. She thought of Elara in chains. She thought of Rowan walking away. She thought of Sir Cedric kneeling in the mud. She drank. The liquor burned through her empty stomach. Freya did not encourage her to take more. Malkova did anyway. Her control loosened. She admitted that she feared Rowan would reclaim his human name and realize he had married beneath himself. Freya told her Rowan was a fool if he could not see her worth. Malkova answered that Rowan had seen it before she did. The words broke something open. She began crying. She confessed that she had accused Rowan of judging Elara because anger was easier than admitting her mother had chosen fear over truth. She said the clan called her disloyal. She said Rowan had given her freedom, and she had repaid him with suspicion. She said she did not know how to carry all of it without breaking. Freya moved closer. She touched Malkova's cheek. Malkova closed her eyes. For 1 second, the hand felt like safety from an older life. Then Freya kissed her. Malkova froze. The kiss lasted 2 heartbeats. For the first, shock held her still. For the second, some wounded part of her almost accepted the comfort. Then Rowan's key pressed against her chest beneath her shirt. Malkova shoved Freya away. Freya stared at her. Malkova stood too quickly and nearly fell. Freya caught her arm. Malkova tore free. "I cannot do this. It was only a kiss. It was not mine to take. He will never know." That sentence ended what remained between them. "I will know." Freya's face hardened. "You are choosing a human over the person who stood beside you in battle." "No." Malkova touched the key beneath her shirt. "I am choosing the person I said I wanted to become." She left before midnight. She did not enter Freya's tent. She did not wait for dawn. She walked through the rain for 3 hours until the cottage lights appeared. Rowan stood outside the forge. He saw the mark near her mouth. He smelled the liquor. Malkova stopped several steps away. "I kissed Freya." Rowan went still. "She kissed me. For 2 heartbeats I did not stop her. Then I pushed her away and came here. Did you kiss her back?" "For 1 moment, yes." Rowan looked away. Malkova stepped closer. He stepped back. Nothing else happened. "I did not enter her tent. I did not stay." "Do you expect that to make this harmless?" "No." "Then why tell me now?" "Because hiding it would turn one failure into a life built around it." Rowan entered the forge. Malkova followed. "You said she belonged to an old life." "She does." "You knew she wanted you." "Yes, and you kept her close." Malkova lowered her eyes. "Yes, why? Because being wanted by someone I did not have to answer felt safe." Rowan closed his eyes. Malkova removed the wedding key and placed it on the anvil. "I used the freedom you gave me badly. I gave you that key because I believed staying would mean you chose me. I did choose you, not for those 2 heartbeats." Malkova dropped to one knee. Orc warriors knelt only before the dead, or before someone whose life they had taken. Rowan knew the custom. The liquor did not choose. Freya did not choose. Pain did not choose. "I failed to move. Do you love her? No. Do you love me? Yes. Do not use that word to cover this. I will not." Malkova rose. "I will leave for the watch cottage. I will request another captain. I will not meet Freya privately again, not because you command it, because I know why I kept her close." Rowan's eyes were wet. "Go." Malkova left. Rowan remained beside the anvil. After the door closed, he removed the plain iron wedding ring from his finger. He placed it beside Malkova's key. He did not throw either into the fire. At the watch cottage, Malkova touched the empty place beneath her shirt where the key had rested. Then she opened her fist. She still held the wooden box Rowan had made on their wedding day. She placed it beside her bed. Neither had thrown away the marriage. Neither was ready to wear it. What should Rowan do now? End the marriage because Malkova crossed the boundary, or judge her by the fact that she pushed Freya away within seconds and confessed before anyone could expose her? Share your prediction in the comments and subscribe to Orc Bond Saga before Alistair turns their private wound into a public weapon. Their separation lasted 5 weeks. Malkova stopped drinking. She requested Freya's transfer. She reported every road change directly and never arrived late. She did not send gifts or beg. Rowan did not reward her. He worked alone, but pain followed him into the forge. He imagined the kiss, not a night in a tent, only the sharper truth that Malkova had wanted comfort badly enough to stand still for 2 heartbeats. That was enough. During the 2nd week of their separation, Dunmere held its winter market. The treaty required both Rowan and Malkova to attend because grain prices and iron quotas had to be confirmed before the mountain pass closed. They arrived separately. Rowan wore no wedding ring. Malkova wore the wooden key box tied beneath her cloak, but kept the chain key hidden. Human merchants noticed the empty place on Rowan's hand. Orc traders noticed Malkova had come without her husband. The whispers began before the first bell. A butcher asked Rowan whether orc wives always returned to their own kind once the novelty of a human bed faded. Rowan placed his order without answering. The butcher laughed and said perhaps the famous Ashcroft heir could forge himself a more faithful bride. Rowan's hand tightened around the coin. For one dangerous second, Malkova expected him to strike the man. Instead, Rowan placed the money on the counter and said a man who sold animal flesh for a living should know better than to confuse cruelty with strength. The butcher's smile vanished. Across the square, two orc warriors blocked Malkova's path. One asked whether the human had thrown her out. The other said perhaps Malkova had finally remembered that a marriage to a smaller man could never make her respectable. Malkova told them to move. They refused. One called her a discarded treaty animal. Malkova's hand moved toward her knife. Then she saw Rowan watching from across the market. He did not intervene. He did not look away. He was allowing her to decide who she would be. Malkova removed her hand from the weapon. She stepped between the two warriors, shoulder-checking both aside without drawing steel. The larger warrior grabbed her braid. Malkova caught his wrist, twisted him to his knees, and held him there. She told him she could break the joint before he finished his next insult. The square became silent. Then she released him. No blood, no arrest, no excuse for the elders to call her unstable. The warrior staggered away, holding his wrist. The market resumed, but the humiliation did not end. At the council table, Alistair deliberately seated Rowan and Malkova opposite each other. He asked whether their damaged marriage still represented the treaty. Rowan answered that the road remained open and grain continued moving. Alistair said trade required confidence, not merely wagons. Then he turned to Malkova and asked whether she still considered herself Rowan's wife. Every face around the table turned toward her. Malkova looked at Rowan. His expression gave her no rescue. She said the marriage remained legal. Alistair smiled. That was not the question. Malkova's jaw tightened. She answered that Rowan had not chosen to end it. Alistair asked whether that meant she would stay if he did. Rowan's eyes hardened. He told Alistair the council existed to discuss grain, not their bed. Alistair leaned back. A treaty sealed by marriage becomes a public concern when the marriage fails. Malkova replied that a road remained a road, even when the people maintaining it were angry with each other. Alistair asked whether that was what she called betrayal. Anger. The word struck the square like a thrown blade. Malkova stood. Rowan stood at the same moment. The villagers expected a scene. The orcs expected violence. Instead, Rowan gathered the grain documents. He told Alistair the quotas were confirmed and the council was finished. Alistair said Rowan could not simply leave. Rowan looked at him. "You mistake a chair for a chain." He walked away. Malkova remained frozen for one breath. Then she followed at a distance. Outside the market, Rowan stopped beneath a bare ash tree. He did not turn. Malkova stood several steps behind him. She said she was sorry Alistair had used the kiss against him publicly. Rowan answered that Alistair had used nothing Malkova had not given him. The words hurt. They were also true. Malkova said she understood. Rowan finally turned. He looked exhausted rather than angry. He told her the butcher's insult had made him want to break the man's jaw. Malkova admitted she had nearly broken the warrior's wrist. Rowan said he had seen, neither smiled. For the first time since the separation, they stood together without discussing forgiveness. Only the cost of restraint. Malkova told him she had kept the wooden box. Rowan looked at her cloak, as though he could see it beneath the fabric. He said he still had the ring and her key. "Why? I do not know." Malkova nodded. It was the most honest answer he had given her since she left. They separated at the crossroads. Neither reached for the other. That night, Alistair's men attacked the grain station outside Eastwood. The attackers wore orc masks and left human-made arrows behind, trying to make both sides accuse the other. Malkova arrived first with 6 patrol warriors. The station roof was burning. 3 workers were trapped inside, including a human boy who had once mocked her marriage. Malkova entered through the smoke. She carried 1 worker over each shoulder and returned for the boy. A beam pinned his leg. The boy begged her not to leave. Malkova broke the beam with an axe, lifted him, and carried him outside as the roof collapsed. An attacker rushed her from behind. Rowan's hammer struck the man's wrist. Before the blade reached her, the weapon fell. Rowan had arrived with village guards and a wagon of water barrels. He used a hook forged for dragging timber to tear burning beams away from the grain store. When the pump handle snapped, Rowan repaired it under falling sparks with a single heated pin from his travel kit. The workers formed a line. The fire died before reaching the main grain reserve. Afterward, Malkova stood covered in soot with the rescued boy clinging to her arm. Rowan looked at her across the yard. The separation remained. The hurt remained. But when Alistair's attack came, both had moved toward the danger and toward each other without discussion. The boy's father approached Malkova. He had been one of the men who whispered at the burned forge. He lowered his head and thanked her. Malkova accepted without pretending the apology erased anything. Rowan found a black wax seal beneath the body of one attacker. The same wax from the messenger's manifest. They now had direct physical evidence connecting Alistair's network to the attacks. One evening, Rowan found a letter beneath the forge door. Malkova did not ask for forgiveness. She wrote that loneliness explained her weakness, but did not excuse it. She wrote that she had kept Freya's attention because it made her feel powerful when the clan made her feel disposable. She wrote that stopping mattered, but it did not erase failing to stop sooner. At the bottom, she had added one line. "You gave me a key so staying could be a choice. I will not ask you to trust my choice again until my actions make it possible." Rowan folded the letter. Then an arrow struck the wall beside his head. A message was wrapped around it. The last Ashcroft should have died with his father. Malkova arrived with guards before midnight. She waited outside until Rowan invited her in. The arrow carried southern military fletching and the merchant mark used by Alistair's family. The conspiracy had moved from sabotage to open assassination. Sir Cedric said they needed the original Ashcroft seal matrix to prove the ledgers were genuine and prevent Alistair from claiming the records had been forged. At the ruined estate, they found the matrix beneath Theodore Ashcroft's old anvil. Besides, it was a final letter. Rowan read it alone. His father admitted that he had known the forge fire was coming. He had hidden the evidence, but refused to run again, because flight had already consumed Rowan's childhood. He asked his son not to rebuild the family through revenge. Rowan's knees failed. Malkova caught him. His body froze inside her arms. She almost released him. Then Rowan pressed his face against her shoulder and wept. Malkova held him. No kisses. No promise, only one wounded person refused to let another fall. The following morning, royal soldiers surrounded the estate. Alistair rode at their head with orders for Rowan's arrest on charges of impersonating a noble heir and conspiring with orcs to seize the Iron Road. Malkova reached for her sword. Rowan stopped her. "If you fight, Alistair will turn every frightened human against the treaty. They are taking you. I need witnesses, not bodies." Malkova's hand remained on the hilt. Rowan looked directly at her. "Trust me." The word passed between them like a blade, offered handle first. Malkova released the sword. The provincial hearing was held before Judge Harrison Cole. The courtroom was filled with merchants, clan representatives, villagers, and royal observers. Vivian Sterling, the royal archivist, sat beside the judge with sealed record books stacked before her. Alistair presented forged letters, claiming Rowan had promised Ashcroft land to the Thorn March. 2 paid witnesses said Rowan had spoken of revenge against the crown. Sir Cedric produced the original ledgers recovered from the estate. Vivian examined the ink and paper but said she could not authenticate them without the original seal matrix. Alistair smiled. Judge Harrison asked whether Malkova had known Rowan was the last Ashcroft heir. No. Alistair rose slowly. He asked whether honesty had ever existed inside their marriage. He knew about Freya. 2 patrol guards had witnessed the kiss. Malkova stepped forward before he could control the story. She admitted that during an emotional collapse she had become drunk and failed to stop Freya from kissing her for 2 heartbeats. The court erupted in whispers. Alistair asked whether she had entered Freya's tent. "And spent the night? No. Returned to Rowan immediately. Yes. Had Rowan forgiven her? No." Alistair smiled. "Then your marriage is already broken." Malkova answered that a wounded marriage was not evidence of forged royal records. Freya testified next. She admitted initiating the kiss and confirmed that Malkova had pushed her away almost immediately. Then she identified Alistair's agent, who had paid low-born scouts for patrol information. Alistair called her a rejected woman seeking revenge. Freya answered that rejection did not erase his payments. Sir Cedric produced the seal matrix. Vivian Sterling examined it beneath a magnifying lens. She compared the engraved fracture line, the age of the silver, and the irregular pressure marks against Ashcroft decrees preserved in the Royal Archive. The matrix was genuine. The ledgers were genuine. Alistair's smile disappeared. Judge Harrison ordered the doors guarded. Alistair glanced toward the southern entrance. A hooded clerk entered, carrying a document case, marked with the same merchant symbol found on the assassination arrow. Malkova intercepted him. The clerk reached inside. A hidden crossbow fired. The bolt struck the wall beside Rowan. Panic exploded. Alistair ran. Rowan chased him into the archive corridor. Malkova followed. Alistair knocked over an oil lamp. Flames spread across the old records. Rowan tackled him near the stairwell. Alistair struck Rowan's scar with a dagger hilt. Rowan fell. Alistair raised the blade. Malkova seized him by the throat and drove him against the stone wall. His boots left the ground. Every instinct demanded that she crush him. He had starved her people, controlled Elara, killed witnesses, murdered. Theodore Ashcroft burned the forge and turned their marriage into a weapon. Alistair stared into her eyes. "Do it," he rasped. "Prove fear is the only law that matters." Malkova's grip tightened. Rowan reached for her arm. "If you kill him, every human story will remember his death and forget his crimes." Blood ran from Rowan's reopened scar. Malkova looked at Alistair. For the first time, the Reeve appeared eager. He wanted death more than judgment. Death would turn him into a warning. The trial would turn him into proof. Malkova released him. Royal guards dragged him away. Smoke swallowed the corridor. A beam crashed across the main passage. Rowan remembered a service route behind the shelves. The door had rusted shut. Malkova struck it. "Nothing! Up a stone!" Rowan ordered. She hit the masonry. It cracked. Rowan drove the Ashcroft seal matrix into the exposed hinge pin and struck it with fallen iron. The pin dropped. Malkova tore open the door. They escaped as the archive roof collapsed. Enough records survived. Vivian Sterling verified the remaining documents against royal copies. Alistair Kane was convicted of murder, sabotage, conspiracy, extortion, and attempted assassination. Elara admitted selling information under threat and debt. Judge Harrison sentenced her to supervise service rebuilding grain stations and repaying the families harmed by her choices. Malkova did not defend her. She did not abandon her. Judge Harrison asked Rowan whether he intended to reclaim the Ashcroft title. Number refusal would cost him most restored lands. Rowan accepted only the ruined forge and enough neutral ground to create a public trade council. No crown, no throne, no restored palace. After the hearing, Malkova approached him in the rain. He asked, why she had confessed publicly before Alistair could force it from her. Because what I name myself cannot be used to control me. Did you want Freya? I wanted relief. For 2 heartbeats I confused it with wanting her. Rowan flinched. Then I remembered the difference and came home. I have not forgiven you. I know. I still love you. Malkova stopped breathing. That is the part I hate most. He walked away. Malkova did not follow. The trial ended Alistair's conspiracy. It did not repair their marriage. That work had no judge, no witnesses, and no final verdict. Rowan returned to the Ashcroft forge. Malkova remained at the watch cottage. Their meetings became practical. Road schedules, grain weights, guard rotations. Once, Rowan handed her a repaired sword without touching her hand. Once, Malkova brought him medicine for the wound beside his scar and left it on the table. Neither mentioned the ring, neither mentioned the key. During the first week after the trial, a blizzard trapped them inside a mountain toll house with 4 guards. The storm blocked both doors. There was only one fire. Malkova sat across from Rowan while the guards slept. He removed his glove to warm his scarred hand. The knuckles were swollen from striking the archive hinge. Malkova offered to wrap them. Rowan hesitated. Then he extended his hand. She worked carefully. The intimacy of touching him after weeks apart made her throat tighten. Rowan watched her. He asked whether she still carried the wooden box. Yes. Why? Because throwing it away would have been easier than looking at it. Rowan looked toward the fire. He said he still had the ring. Malkova's fingers paused. She asked why. He answered that pain had made him remove it, but anger had not made him destroy it. That was all. The guards woke before either said more. 2 weeks later, Freya requested a private meeting with Malkova. They met in the open training yard at midday, where no secrecy could be claimed. Freya had received orders transferring her to the northern ridge. She told Malkova she would leave before sunset. Malkova said that was best. Freya looked hurt, though she tried to hide it. She admitted she had known Malkova was drunk and emotionally broken. She had kissed her anyway, because part of her believed one moment of weakness might give her what years of loyalty had not. Malkova said that made the kiss Freya's failure too. Freya agreed. Then she asked whether Malkova hated her. Malkova looked toward the distant road. She said she hated what Freya had done, and hated what she herself had allowed for those 2 heartbeats. But she did not hate the warrior who had carried her through snow after a spear wound, or the friend who had stood beside her before either understood the cost of unspoken desire. Freya asked whether they could ever return to what they had been. No. The answer came gently. Freya nodded. Malkova removed the old knife Freya had given her after their first campaign. She held it out. Freya did not take it at first. Malkova said some gifts belonged to the person she had once been. Freya accepted the knife. She told Malkova that Rowan had better understand what it cost her to choose him. Malkova answered that Rowan owed Freya nothing. Freya almost smiled. Then she said Malkova was finally learning. They clasped forearms once, not lovers, not enemies, not friends in the old way. 2 warriors acknowledging a bond that could not survive unchanged. Freya rode north before sunset. Rowan heard about the meeting from the patrol ledger rather than from gossip. Malkova had written every detail herself. He said nothing. The following morning he left a repaired shoulder guard outside her cottage. The crack had been reinforced with a thin ash leaf pattern. It was the first thing he had made for her since the separation. Winter closed the road 3 months later. Malkova and 2 guards sheltered inside Rowan's forge after an avalanche blocked the pass. At dawn, Rowan woke beneath Malkova's cloak. She had left early to clear the road. Pinned to the cloak was the first wedding key. Beneath it lay another key. Malkova had forged it herself. The iron was rough and uneven. 2 lines met in the handle. It opened with nothing, not yet. Rowan carried both keys for the rest of winter. He did not wear the ring, but he stopped keeping it beside the anvil. He placed it inside the wooden wedding box. Spring brought the first mixed market to the restored forge. Human farmers sold grain beside orc leather workers. Two merchants fought over stall space until Malkova lifted both by their collars and placed them on opposite sides of the road. Rowan laughed from the forge doorway. Their eyes met across the market. The chemistry between them had not died, it had sharpened. That evening, Rowan found her near the river. He held up the rough key. What does it open? Nothing yet. Yet? I hoped one day it might open a door we chose together. Rowan sat beside her. I want to try again. Malkova went still. Trying is not forgiveness. I understand. Jealousy will return. I will answer without punishing you for asking. Some days I will remember the kiss when you have done nothing wrong. I will not demand that you lie about what you remember. What do you want? Separate rooms until you ask for something else. No hidden meetings. No drinking when I am angry. No using your fear or your bloodline against you. I want honesty before damage, not only after it. Rowan reached for her hand. Malkova let him choose the distance. Their palms met. The touch burned more intensely than their first kiss. Their courtship began after their marriage nearly ended. Rowan visited the watch cottage for evening meals. Malkova learned to bake human bread badly. He ate the burned edges and claimed they had character. She told him character was what humans called failure when hungry. He smiled. They walked the road together. At first, Rowan kept distance, then his hand began finding hers. They did not discuss Freya every night. They did not repeat the same apology until it lost meaning. Instead, Malkova showed Rowan where she was going before he had to ask. Rowan told her when jealousy returned, instead of punishing her with silence. Once, she became defensive. She stopped halfway through the argument, breathed, and began again without attacking him. Once, Rowan accused her of hiding something when she was not. He apologized before the evening meal and did not excuse the accusation through pain. Their progress was uneven. It was also real. One night, Malkova woke from a nightmare and found Rowan sitting outside her door. He had not entered because she had not invited him. "Do you want company?" Malkova stepped aside. They sat on the floor with their backs against the bed. Rowan asked whether she missed Freya. Malkova answered honestly, "I miss the person I thought I was before I understood what my silence cost." Rowan touched her cheek. Malkova turned into his palm. Their kiss began gently. Months of restraint broke beneath it. Malkova backed him against the door, then stopped. "Are you certain?" Rowan answered by drawing her down until their mouths met again. The longing was deeper because both knew what could be lost. His hands moved beneath the loose edges of her armor, finding warm skin without rushing. Malkova shivered when his fingers traced the line of muscle at her waist. She lifted him, and Rowan's back touched the door. He laughed breathlessly. Malkova asked what amused him. He said she handled him as if he were a shield. She answered that he weighed less than one. Rowan caught her braid and pulled her mouth back to his. The teasing disappeared beneath another kiss. Malkova carried him toward the bed, then paused. She asked again whether he was certain. Rowan touched the key hanging beneath her throat. He said he was not certain the past would never return. He was certain he wanted this night. That answer mattered more than confidence would have. Malkova placed him on the bed. Rowan pulled her down slowly, making her choose every inch of closeness. Their mouths met again. His scar scraped gently against her cheek. Her tusks brushed his lower lip. He whispered her name with a hunger that made her grip the bedding. Malkova had always believed strength meant taking control. With Rowan, strength sometimes meant allowing herself to be held without fighting the tenderness. He kissed the scar on her throat. She closed her eyes. His hands moved carefully over old battle marks, touching each one as if it were part of a language he intended to learn. Malkova drew him closer until there was no room left between their bodies. The lamp burned low, the rest belonged to them. By morning, Rowan slept with his head against her chest and one hand still resting at her waist. Malkova remained awake for a long time, not from fear that he would leave, from the knowledge that staying had become a responsibility she wanted. They did not immediately share a home. Distance remained part of the repair. Malkova hated it, she respected it. Political pressure continued. Human nobles urged Rowan to reclaim the Ashcroft title. Orc elders urged Malkova to demand permanent clan control of the road. Both refused. They proposed a neutral trade council made of farmers, smiths, patrol officers, widows, merchants and labourers. Tristan Ashcroft, Rowan's distant cousin, challenged Rowan's right to control the neutral forge without accepting the family title. Tristan arrived wearing polished armour and carrying a sword made for ceremony rather than use. He offered to restore Rowan's name, lands and influence if Rowan ended the marriage and returned the road to human authority. Rowan refused. Tristan argued before Judge Harrison that Rowan could not reject the Ashcroft title while using Ashcroft land. The court ordered a trial of service. For 3 days, Rowan and Tristan would receive equal iron, equal workers, and equal access to the road. Tristan's smiths produced decorated armor, ceremonial gates, and noble weapons. Rowan's mixed apprentices repaired plows, wagon wheels, surgical knives, bridge bolts, water pumps, and grain store locks. Tristan mocked the smaller work. Then a storm damaged the East Bridge. A grain convoy became trapped with families waiting on the far side. Tristan's ceremonial iron could do nothing. Rowan examined the bridge and said the central braces could be saved if new collars were fitted beneath the floodline. Only he understood the angles well enough to make them. Malkova tied the safety rope around his waist. Her hands shook. Promises do not control rivers. Your grip on this rope might. Rowan descended. The current slammed him against the beams. He fitted the first collar. A timber shifted. The rope tore through Malkova's palms. She pulled with 3 warriors until Rowan surfaced. He took one breath and went back down. At the same time, a grain wagon slid toward the river. Malkova handed the rope to another guard and ran. She planted herself behind the wagon. Mud moved beneath her boots. The full weight of the grain pressed against her shoulders. A wheel slipped over the edge. Malkova roared and drove both feet deeper into the mud. Rowan saw her from below. He ordered the apprentices to drive the final brace. The iron collar locked. The bridge held. The wagon stopped inches from the river. Malkova fell to one knee. Rowan climbed onto the bank and ran toward her. He caught her muddy face and kissed her in front of Judge Harrison, Tristan, the merchants, and every person who had called their marriage unnatural. Malkova wrapped both arms around him and lifted him from the ground. The crowd laughed, then cheered. Tristan lost the trial. The forge remained public. Rowan refused the title again. 2 years after the wedding, Rowan rebuilt the charcoal cottage. He widened the doorway, strengthened the bed, and fitted Malkova's rough key into the front door lock. He placed the key in her palm. "A home," he said. "Only if you still want to enter. Are you certain?" "No." The honesty made her smile through tears. "I'm certain I love you. I'm not certain jealousy will never return. It will, I know. I cannot promise I will never fail you in another way. I do not need perfection. I need truth before damage." Malkova turned the rough key. The door opened. Inside were 2 chairs, a broad table, shelves for tools and weapons, and the rosemary plant Rowan had carried from the old forge. The original wedding chain hung above the hearth. Elara served her sentence at the grain stations. Malkova visited twice each year. The first visit ended in shouting. The second ended in silence. During the third, Elara admitted she had spent years calling fear responsibility because responsibility sounded less shameful. Malkova did not forgive her that day. She returned the following year. Some wounds closed slowly. Freya remained on the northern patrol. She and Malkova exchanged official reports and nothing more for a long time. Years later, Freya sent a short letter, announcing that she had been promoted and had married a healer from the Ridge settlement. Malkova read the letter twice. She felt relief, grief and gratitude. Then she placed it in the drawer rather than hiding it. Rowan saw it there. He did not ask her to burn it. Malkova did not ask him to pretend it meant nothing. That was what trust looked like after the speeches ended. Rowan sometimes woke from dreams of the forge fire. Malkova sometimes woke up believing she was back in the treaty hall. On those nights, they did not offer grand explanations. Rowan placed the first key in her hand. Malkova placed his palm over her heart. 5 years after the wedding, the Iron Road carried twice as much trade. Humans and orcs still argued. Families still opposed mixed marriages. Small fights broke out in markets. No full war came. Too many people had begun building livelihoods across the border. The neutral forge became known as Key House. Travelers came for tools, shelter and judgment when human law and orc custom disagreed. Malkova remained a captain. Rowan remained a blacksmith. They wore no crowns. They ruled no kingdom. Their roof still leaked each winter because Rowan always believed he could repair it before the first storm and never did. On their 7th anniversary, they returned to Blackridge Hall. A new treaty couple stood beneath the roof, a human woman and an orc man. Their families had suggested the match, but both had been allowed to refuse. The ceremonial chain had been redesigned. 2 locks, 2 keys, 1 for each partner. After the ceremony, rain began falling. Malkova asked whether Rowan wished they had met differently. Yes, she looked at him. I wish you had entered my forge by choice. I wish my father had lived. I wish your mother had asked for help. I wish Freya had never kissed you. Malkova's hand tightened around him, but wishing for a cleaner beginning does not change the people we became while surviving the real one. Have you forgiven me? Rowan thought for a long time. I no longer want to punish you, myself, or our marriage for those 2 heartbeats. The memory still hurts. It no longer controlled every memory beside it. Malkova accepted the answer. That evening, Rowan removed the old wedding chain from above the hearth. Malkova followed him into the forge. What are you doing? Finishing the gift. He placed the chain inside the hottest part of the fire. The black links turned red. Rowan pulled them from the coals and raised Theodore Ashcroft's hammer. The first strike broke the shape of the chain. The second flattened the links. The third turned the symbol of their forced marriage into raw iron. Malkova took the hammer next. Together, they worked until the chain no longer resembled something meant to bind wrists. Rowan shaped part of the metal into a curved door handle. Malkova forged the rest into a new key. Near dawn, they carried both pieces to the front door. Rowan fixed the handle into the wood. Malkova placed the new key into the lock. The first key still hung beside the hearth. The rough return key hung beside it. The third key turned smoothly. The door opened toward the road. Malkova rested her hand on the melted iron handle. Rowan stood behind her, his scar silver in the early light. Chains should become doors, he said. Malkova turned and rested her forehead against his. Behind them, the forge fire faded. Ahead, morning spread across the human fields and the dark orc hills. Their hands remained joined, not because a treaty demanded it, not because desire had erased betrayal, not because forgiveness had made either of them innocent. The first key had given Malkova freedom to leave. The second had represented her choice to return. The final key opened the home they had rebuilt together. Would you have forgiven Malkova after those 2 drunken heartbeats if she pushed Freya away and confessed immediately? Or would the broken boundary still have ended the marriage for you? Share your answer and the lesson you took from their story, and subscribe to Orc Bond Saga for more fierce, flawed, and forbidden human-orc romances.